Hey y'all, we are back with one more psalm. We are on day 83, so we are inching closer. Let's get started on today's psalm. Alright, so we are reading Psalm 141, and I'm reading from the NIV. I call to you, Lord, come quickly to me. Hear me when I call to you. May my prayer be set before you like incense. May the lifting up of my hands be like the evening sacrifice. Set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Do not let my heart be drawn to what is evil, so that I take part in wicked deeds along with those who are evildoers. Do not let me eat their delicacies. Let a righteous man strike me, that is a kindness. Let him rebuke me, that is oil on my head. My head will not refuse it, for my prayer will still be against the deeds of evildoers. Their rulers will be thrown down from the cliffs, and the wicked will learn that my words were well spoken. They will say, as one plows and breaks up the earth, so our bones have been scattered at the mouth of the grave. But my eyes are fixed on you, sovereign Lord. In you I take refuge. Do not give me over to death. Keep me safe from the traps set by evildoers, from the snares they have laid for me. Let the wicked fall into their own nets while I pass by in safety. So yesterday we read a psalm of lament by David. Today again is another lament. The difference is that yesterday we focused on the enemy, and today the focus is on David himself. So once again, we're going to go through this spiritually, and we're going to look at our posture when we are facing an attack from the enemy. So let's start with verse 2. It may be a familiar verse to some. David is praying that his petition rise up to God like incense. And this is referencing the sacrificial rituals that the priest would perform in the holiest of holies. The incense would be lit and it would form a cloud, and this would protect the priests from the presence of God when it came down. The part in this verse about the evening sacrifice would mean that it would have had a good and sweet smell to it. So here David is asking that his prayer would bring in God's presence, and also that his hands being lifted, meaning a posture of worship and praise, would be accepted by God as an offering. Moving to verse 3, it says, Set a guard over my mouth, Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. It is important that we are always monitoring, watching what we say when we are in the midst of wickedness or unrighteousness. David doesn't want his words to match that of his enemies, which are used as weapons. Proverbs 17:28 says, Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. James 3:6 says, The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. We know that the tongue is a powerful thing, that our words are also powerful, and David knew that. He is asking that God guard his lips in the midst of all this evil and wickedness. Verse 4 says, Do not let my heart be drawn to what is evil. The part in this verse that is about food is irrelevant to us in the new covenant, but the intention is the same. We must be careful that we do not get lured into what non-believers are doing, right? Usually what non-believers are doing, or even believers who are walking in unrighteousness, it usually looks good, it usually looks fun, it usually seems harmless. But David knew that once you cross that line, your heart is at stake. Ephesians 4 in verse 27 says, Give no room to the devil. And that is the essence of David's verse right here. Verse 5 is about integrity and discipline. David here is praying that a righteous man lead and teach and guide him, and also criticize and correct him. And the reason that he will access or accept this discipline is, as we see in the second half, is because he has already He already has a heart towards righteousness. He's already calling out and praying against evil deeds. And this is something we also need to be mindful of. How are we taking correction? How are we allowing people to teach us? If we're unwilling, or if we are standing in offense over someone's correction, could it be that we have a heart issue? Could it be that we weren't seeing something as unrighteous even though it was, and so we are taking it personally, right? Moving on to verse 6, it's saying that everything that David is praying for and everything that he is saying will be proven true when God rains down justice upon the wicked. And this is important to us because we need to watch whether or not our words are accurate. Are they culpable? Do our words match God's words and his actions? Do they match what the word says? What are we really saying when we speak, especially when we are speaking to or about non-believers? Moving forward in this psalm then, verse 7 is a prayer of retribution. And then verse 8 says, "But my eyes are fixed on you, sovereign Lord." And we know that focusing on God is absolutely essential when we are in the midst of evil. And because we live here on earth, we are always in the midst of evil. So our eyes have to remain fixed on God. This isn't, though, just about focus. It's about trust. It's about faith. It's about 100% believing that God is who he says he is, and that regardless of how everything plays out, he is still God and he is still seated on the throne. So taking refuge then in the second half of this verse means seeking God. Don't complain to people. Bring your complaints to God. Take your grievances to him first and foremost. And then when you're scared, when the attack is getting a little bit closer, when you're exhausted, when you're lonely, whatever it is, you can also take that to God, and that is your place of refuge in the midst of all the evil that is trying to come at you. I also want to point out too that it's important that we bring our vulnerabilities to God, that we bring our temptations to God, that we are saying, God, I feel like I'm about to slip. I feel like I might be getting to the point where I do something that I know is wrong. It's important that we bring that stuff to him as well. Moving on in verse 9, it closely mirrors what we were talking about yesterday, so I encourage you to go back to yesterday's video and rewatch or reread the psalm. And then we end in verse 10 with a prayer of retribution or punishment, but it's also a prayer for safe passing, for deliverance, and for protection. So my revelation for this psalm is, what do we give more attention to? The attack, the people attacking, or ourselves? It's easy to point fingers. It's easy to blame. It's very easy to point out unrighteousness in other people. It's harder to focus on what we are doing and where we may be messing up. This psalm reflects on the self and God, not two separate entities, but together, and that is profound. Because when we focus on God, he will point us back to ourselves, right? And if we are focusing on ourselves, we understand that in order for there to be substantive change, in order for there to be a heart change, we must go to God to get the process started. We cannot change our heart on our own. So it is very much so a self and God kind of collaboration that we have here in this psalm. So just to end, we always need to be aware of our statures, our emotions, our thoughts, our words, and we must then keep our focus on our righteousness as it is to God. All right? We are going through these fast now, but we're going to get here to the end really soon. If you aren't subscribed to my channel, please make sure that you click that button. Make sure your notifications are turned on. Please comment on this. I want to hear your revelations. And also, please like this video and please share it. All right, y'all. I will see you back here tomorrow.